Hey there, it's Artemis Scantilides, co-owner of Iron Body Studios in West Roxbury, Mass, which is Boston, Massachusetts, author of the blog Iron Body by Artemis, and creator of the Strength Workshop series, I'm Not Afraid to Lift. Today I'm here to talk to you about why I love the kettlebell deadlift, both the single kettlebell deadlift and the double kettlebell deadlift. I love the single kettlebell deadlift because I think it's a great way to start out with deadlifts if you've never deadlifted before. If you are a beginner when it comes to deadlifting, the kettlebell is a lot less intimidating than a barbell. So a single kettlebell, much less intimidating. It's much easier to start with your deadlifts with a kettlebell rather than a barbell. This is something that I talk about at my workshop, I'm Not Afraid to Lift. This is how I introduce the hinge and the deadlift is with the single kettlebell deadlift. So let's just talk through a little bit about how to set up for your single kettlebell deadlift. So when you have that kettlebell, and think about it, the barbell, if you've never deadlifted before and you're just getting started with strength training, that barbell can be really intimidating. Like what do I do with it? The plates, just how do I approach it? Whereas with a kettlebell, it's just this ball of weight, right? So it's much more manageable because it really translates to the loads that we move around in real life. So it's a lot less intimidating. So when you set yourself up, or if you're a coach and you're gonna coach your client through setting themselves up for a single kettlebell deadlift, what you want to do is you want to stand over the kettlebell. So you want to get over that weight. Center yourself over the weight. Make sure that the kettlebell lines up with the middle of your feet. You see from the side, I'm this way. I'm lined up, I'm right over the top of the bell here. So lining up with the kettlebell, I'll go at an angle here, maybe this is a little bit better. I'm centered with the kettlebell. Lined up with the middle of my feet. I always have people, especially if they're just starting out lifting, I always have people chop their hips to get their hip hinge. It just automatically gets them into the right place. So taking your hands, go ahead and chop your hips, right? So your hips bend, your butt goes back, your knees bend as a result. And you want to make sure you have this angle in that your shoulders are higher than your hips and your hips are higher than your knees. Then taking your hands, reaching through the handle, you want to make sure when you reach through that handle that all 4 fingers go inside, right? So no pinkies on the outside, none of this, all right? So getting all 4 fingers on the inside of the handle. And then from here, just making sure, just double check, shoulders higher than hips, hips higher than knees. I always have people, once they get to that position and their hands are in the handle, actively pull that handle apart, break that handle. And what that does is it helps people to pack their shoulders, get their lats engaged. Now, what's my head doing? I'm looking out on the floor in front of me. So right now where I'm looking, our turf, it hits our wall. So right where the turf meets the wall, that's where I'm looking. I'm not looking straight ahead at the wall in front of me. I'm not hyperextending my cervical spine. I have this nice, relatively neutral position with my neck, with my cervical spine. So now I'm here. I have my angle here that I want to be in. Hands inside the handle, break that handle, get that upper body tension. So my lats are engaged, my shoulders are packed. I'm looking out on the floor in front of me. I'm going to inhale through my nose. I'm going to use a hard style power breath to lift this weight up. Inhale through my nose. And I finish my hips nice and crisp at the top of the deadlift. Hinge over, touch the bell to the ground. And as I was lifting that weight up, the cue that I like to give people is push the floor away with your feet. Actively push the floor away with your feet. So hinge over, reach for that handle, break the handle, look on the floor in front of me, inhale through my nose, actively push the floor away with my feet, and finish my hips nice and crisp. Inhale, hinge, touch the bell to the ground. Inhale. And this is, as far as, at Iron Body Studios, we are a kettlebell training facility primarily. So we'll teach the the kettlebell deadlift, we teach the hip hinge and then the kettlebell deadlift, and then we teach the two-handed kettlebell swing. I always have people really practice that really strong hip finish at the top of their deadlift because it translates to the two-handed swing that they will learn next. So those are just a few reasons why I like the kettlebell deadlift, particularly the single kettlebell deadlift. And once, if you're new to strength training, if you are a coach and your client is new to strength training, once they get some practice with a single kettlebell deadlift, then I would progress them onto a double kettlebell deadlift. So with the double kettlebell deadlift, and the reason why I would progress them to the double kettlebell deadlift before they move on to a barbell deadlift is because, again, it's a little less intimidating than that barbell. And the double kettlebell deadlift, what it does is it allows your newer client or your person who's newer to strength training to continue to work with the kettlebell, but just add a little bit more weight, add that other dynamic of the second bell, and just add some additional weight to the movement of the deadlift.